The decline of fake Fox News, election fraud whistleblowers, and more states flipping for Trump. Welcome back, my friend, to The Silent War with your host, Dustin Nemos, where we continue with your help to break the cycle of fake news and censorship. Now, on this episode, we're going to dive into some of the latest as the fraud begins to fail. And more so, it looks like we may even see some justice here. We have election fraud whistleblowers, even possibly from within Dominion itself. Here we go. So we took North Carolina, finally, and the Democrats were very grudging and finally conceding that. Same thing with Alaska 8 days later. We also have, and this is where it's going to get into some of the election fraud information that's coming out, and we've been talking about this for days now, ever since it happened. Tons of information coming out, just days and days and days of multiple incidents where it's up to the point of thousands of cases. We're going to talk about some of that here. It's really becoming quite extensive. So, stunning sworn affidavit from former Michigan Assistant AG. Election worker assigned new names to voters when it appeared absentee ballot was from a person who already voted. So this is the equivalent of you walking in and voting and they say, oh, this one's already taken. What other name do you want to use? That's the kind of just fraud mill that they were running here. Just, revolving door fraud. Fast food level fraud. I mean, industrial level, convenient fraud. That's what this was. I mean, would you like to supersize that fraud? I don't know how else to say this except for this was accessible. This was massive, widespread. We also have in Texas the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick offering up to $1 million reward for evidence of voter fraud. I'm sure he's going to have a couple of takers. We also have analysis of election night data from all states showing that millions of votes were switched from President Trump to Biden or were even lost completely using the Dominion and other software systems. Now we're going to talk about Dominion again. Remember that name later on. We've already talked about that and some of the people involved in its ownership in the Democratic Party. But we also have the USPS whistleblower, who the fake news just came out and said he recanted, that he made it up and he took it back. And he says, no, never did. Take back your fake news. Maybe you should recant that I recanted, is what he's saying. And then Project Veritas, who have been working with him and helping to protect him, even uncovering sort of intimidation by federal agents to sort of silence him, are even helping to call this out and saying that it's fraudulent, that he did not recant. He still stands by what he had said originally, that there was training of election fraud going on. Now, from the Republican National Committee chair, Ronna McDaniel, she says that she has 500 sworn affidavits on 11,000 incidents of voter fraud. I mean, she's just one. There's many people involved here, and they're all getting their own reports, and it's being sort of brought together to build this massive national election fraud case that's going to go to the Supreme Court, I think. If it even has to, we may not even need to at the level that it is being turned back already. It may not even need to go to the Supreme Court. That's how massive President Trump's legitimate victory was. They had to go really insane to cheat it and really over the top. I mean, imagine if 100% of people had voted Trump, so they had to triple the population of the United States and send in a bunch of fake ballots, and then every state had shown 300% population voting, when normally it's like 20 or 30 or something, right? Maybe 70, right? Because of such an impactful and intense political season, maybe 70. But we're not seeing 300%, but that's not far off from what we are seeing. We are seeing 125% in some states, where an extra quarter of the population had to be added on there just to pad the numbers. And that don't make no sense. I'm sorry. That does not fly. That is statistically impossible. And we're seeing that play out. Now, Parler is seeing a massive growth, 5 million new users as of yesterday. And we're also seeing Newsmax outgrowing Fox News relatively quickly. All those ratings just went away, Fox News. You lied again and again and again. I kept warning people. Finally, they've had enough. And they are leaving Fox News. And Newsmax is picking up a lot of that. So this is where independent media would benefit the most if we were not so heavily censored. But when that censorship fails and all those ratings go to truth-telling independent media that are not owned and controlled and have no connections to the swamp, we're going to see a world-changing difference. It's going to be incredible. When the likes of a fake news CNN have to respond to the likes of a Dustin Nemos, we're going to see a different world. But right now, censorship is still holding us back. But not that much. Remember, they tried to squash the Biden scandal with the laptop. Hunter Biden, child porn, incest, selling us out to China, all of that, remember? They failed within a few days. The censorship failed despite them banning dozens of us. And they've tried since then to squash election fraud, information getting out. They failed. They keep failing. They're like Bernie Sanders. They just keep on losing. President Trump just keeps on winning bigly. Now, remember when Minneapolis defunded its police? Yeah, they're regretting that now. Homicides are up, violent crimes are up. They're actually trying to borrow police from neighboring precincts. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at the people who do not deserve the violence, because you know it's not these elitist liberals. They probably have private security or even public security police on staff outside of their mansions protecting them, while the plebs and the serfs and the peons and all the slaves and you know, the rest of us, basically, as they see us, they just have to fend for themselves without a Second Amendment, by the way, because you're not allowed to have a Second Amendment. After all, the rabble might rise up one day, right? So Hong Kong pro-democracy lawmakers are quitting en masse after Beijing moves to stamp out the last bastion of political dissent. Hong Kong is no longer free, and it is no longer distinguishable, except in history, from the rest of China and its corruption. It was for a while a little bit freer. In fact, it was one of the wealthiest places on the planet because it was one of the freest places on the planet. Back to that original American lesson where we acquired 2/3 of the world's wealth, or almost 3/4 of the world's wealth, in just a few generations as a new nation because of our freedom. Hong Kong almost had no government for a long time as a British colony. Now, they did cede it back to China, but it kind of came with an agreement that they wouldn't run Hong Kong too much. It was two systems, right? It had its own independent sort of governance. And that is why Hong Kong flourished as a trade center. And that is why the rest of China, comparatively, was quite poor. So Hong Kong kind of became a little bit of a democracy and had some freedom, and they had a taste of it, and now it's being squished out, and they are meeting soldiers that don't believe in freedom with their ideas. Now, ETA strengthens to hurricane, or sorry, ETA strengthens to hurricane as it prepares to strike Florida for second time. Usually ETA means ETA for me, so estimated time till arrival, right? Well, now I'm wondering what the estimated time till arrival of ETA is, because I live right here near Fort Myers. So I'm in the reddish orange part of it as it heads north, and it just made hurricane. Hopefully it'll stay as a Category 1. We've seen a lot of rain. The chickens are not enjoying it, but not too bad so far. I want people to be aware of it, though. Now, Pfizer's CEO is dumping 2/3 of his stock after the COVID vaccine announcement. Now, I guess that his stock soared 16%, right, after they came out showing that their vaccine was more effective than the other poisonous vaccines that don't work, whatever that means. There's never any sort of independent safety studies or long-term safety studies or safety studies of how it interacts with other medications or other vaccines or other drugs or any of that stuff. People keep dying on all these tests, but they roll it on out. So as long as it's voluntary, I guess. But I think that they should be made illegal, frankly. I think vaccines should be made an illegal weapon of war and a violation of human rights. I mean, it really is medical experimentation. Willing or not willing, people are not aware and they're not educated about the risks. So it's really deceptive, even if they're willing to do it. It's like manipulating people. Oftentimes they'll vaccinate children at school without even giving parental consent. Yeah, that's how it is, and some states are encouraging that. So it's very telling that he's dumping 2/3 of his stock right after that. I guess he's just hard up for money, right? Maybe not. We also have the Philadelphia chair of the city commissioners, Lisa Deeley, refuses to speak with Trump campaign attorney. This is not just a protester, but an attorney, despite meeting with Democrat lawyers. So she is playing a double standard here. And here's the video. You can see it for yourself.
Commissioner, were you able to find the policies and procedures that I asked for earlier?
I'm on my way to a meeting.
Okay. So you're not going to share with the Trump campaign the items that we requested? This is what happens in Philadelphia. Corrupt officials like Lisa Deeley refuse to share information with the Trump campaign, and then they cover their face as they walk down the street.
Someone will be with you.
Can you let me know?
I'm on my way to a meeting.
Okay, who is the person that will be with me and when?
Have a nice day.
Who will be with me and when?
The appropriate person.
Who is that? Nick, can you give me their name and number? I witnessed you speaking with Adam Bonin, the lawyer to the Philadelphia Democrats, as you walked into the room, and then you ignored me, the Trump campaign's attorney. And you continue to ignore me. Is there a scheme going on to keep the Trump campaign out of the count? We haven't been able to have any sort of meaningful observation whatsoever. Commissioner, were you able to...
There you see it. Just stonewalling and silence. That's what else do they have when all the lies fail? When they're finally caught, all the lies have failed, they're presented with the evidence, they're presented with the questions, they shut up, they be quiet. Probably don't want to get suicided by their friends and peers, right? Now here's Giuliani talking about Democrat and Dominion whistleblowers. This is incredible.
What Thor was working on in call correct.
Superior information. Thor has the part of it with the government insiders who basically are turning, let's call it state's evidence. They are Democrats who are testifying against the Democratic effort because they were so disgusted. That's basically Thor's people. Coleman has the community people, and he's got the Dominion people. And they were the ones who were the actual, not the poll watchers, the observers, who were excluded, who were lied to, but two of whom stayed behind after all the Republicans had been left out. And they're the ones who got the evidence on the 100,000 votes coming in. And they have some photographs also. You put those two together, and you've got some very, very powerful evidence that that room at the Cobb Center, I think it was a complete, let's make up the votes room. How much do we have to make up, and let's get there.
There you have it. It was a fraudulent room of manufacturing election fraud. I mean, that's too many frauds, but hey, that's what it is. And they were industrial level doing this. Now, I want to mention that we're also going to do a special at redpillliving.com/Nemos this week if you want to support the channel and support President Trump as he tries to go into this fight in the courts. It's going to be very expensive, obviously, and multiple battles, multiple fronts. He's already lost 2/3 of his wealth, so we're going to try to chip in a little bit at redpillliving.com. We're going to do 17% of all sales until Sunday at midnight Pacific. So if you shop at redpillliving.com/Nemos, and that will help support this channel as well as one of our sponsors, we will donate that proceeds to this page at the Trump Pence Make America Great Again website. And they've got it set to go to a couple of different places. So we're going to probably just send it to the one for Trump itself, but they have it to the RNC, they have it to Save America. So, and I think they cap it. So it looks like, full disclosure, it looks like those are more like maybe compensating them or something. But either way, they're splitting it up with the RNC. So just so that you're aware, but we're going to donate anyway. So some of that will help President Trump. And one thing that, might interest you, since it is winter, I talk about the winter blues. I talk about hardening your immune system. I talk about staying healthy and vigorous through throughout this process, keeping your energy levels high. Exhaustion will destroy even heroes, right? So, or what is the expression? Exhaustion makes cowards of us all, I think. Anyway, we can't be too tired. We've got to keep our energy level up. I know I'm exhausted, but I'm also really very optimistic about things right now. And I know a lot of people are not. A lot of people are very dark right now. They think Biden actually won this thing, and he did not. And we need to remind people until they get it through their thick heads. But vitamin D, especially a liposomal vitamin D, and ours is a liposomal vitamin D, is a very powerful way to ward off those winter blues and harden that immune system. It's great to pair it with the vitamin C. They're both delicious, but liposomal, just briefly for those who don't know what that is, it is a way in which you can wrap the nutrient that you're trying to take, in this case a vitamin D3 with a K2, because it's synergistic, really good for your bones and teeth. K2 is very hard to get. You have to look that one up. You have to eat natto or you have to eat key or something. It's hard to get K2. So this is a really good supplement. And when you wrap it in fat cells, oh, I'm sorry, I have a pop-up. When you wrap it in a fat cell or a lipid or a liposomal, it actually protects it from your stomach acid, and then it will go right into your digestive tract in your intestines and absorb into your bloodstream, essentially. And you're not just destroying all of that expensive nutrition that you're buying with dry vitamins, and that's why I call it expensive P, because your stomach acid will destroy most of that, but not when it's wrapped in a lipid or a liposomal. So that's why I only do the liposomal vitamins, and that's why I think they're such a high value. It's not a new technology, but it's not something most people are aware of in terms of taking it as a vitamin. So it's kind of a cool, really cheat way or life hack way to get your vitamin levels in your blood. I mean, this is the kind of thing that would show up on a blood test. You can test it and prove me wrong. But this is the kind of way to get your blood serum levels up even. And the only other way to really increase your levels of vitamin D or C or whatever other liposomal vitamin you're taking as much is to take usually an intravenous injection, like they did the old vitamin C IV drip, right? You could do that and you get a lot of vitamin C in your vein because you're injecting it directly, and it worked wonders for a lot of people. However, it's really hard to get a hospital to administer that because they don't believe in it. And this is a way you can just take it in a bottle form, and it's convenient and delicious. So I cannot say enough good things about liposomal vitamins, and you can definitely check out the D3 with K2. You can check out our liposomal vitamin C. We have a couple of other ones. We actually have turmeric, which is, I personally believe that is an alternative for me to some of the common, like, over-the-counter drugs like an ibuprofen or something. I'm not making claims, but if you look up some of the research behind turmeric and inflammation or anti-inflammatory properties, it seems to be comparable to ibuprofen according to my research. So that's how I use it, and I think it's really incredible. Also, we have the Red Pill Carbon Shield 60 line. We have liposomal vitamin B for energy. We have krill oil, which is a necessity to a healthy functioning brain, immune system, and everything else. I mean, DHA, especially for pregnant women. We have Keto Balance, which has collagen and DHA in it as well. So this is like a really good ketogenic diet supplement. And we even have a heavy metal cream detox. It's called Detoxicream. It used to be called Keela Cream. And it pulls out heavy metals using an EDTA cream. So it's really neat, especially if you're in places like Flint, Michigan, and you don't want to end up with dementia, because a lot of these heavy metals like lead and aluminum, they target the brain, and that's where the fog comes from, a lot of it. And that's where you start to lose who you are. And that's one of my fears in life. I saw that happen to people that I've loved, and I don't want that to happen to me. And I know a lot of that comes from fluoride, a lot of that comes from aluminum, a lot of that comes from lead and heavy metals, mercury, that kind of stuff, especially as they synergize in your brain. So it's really bad. Anyway, I'm going too long, so I'm going to shut up. With all that, I will see you guys on the next one. And a last bit of great news that popped up while we were talking here is the state of Georgia will be doing a full hand recount of the presidential election per the Georgia Secretary of State. That's incredible. We are winning. Multiple states are now flipping back, and it's a matter of time. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Dustin Nemos out.